What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another video on the channel. We have top 10 Formula 1 drivers of the 60s. Very big race this weekend. I'm not sure if I'm still going to be able to, but it is at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here, so we will see. Hopefully I can. No, last week we went live and missed like the first 10-15 laps, but appreciate everybody who did join the live stream. Really fun. Yeah, shout out to man Josh Ravel again, dropping bangers after bangers. Had to, I did subscribe to my boy a while back ago. And let's go and get started, see what it's talking about. Hope you guys are doing good, amazing, stupendous, lovely, outstanding, terrific, happy. That's it. Let's go ahead and start the video. Don't forget to start the video and sub. And y'all let me know who you have win this upcoming weekend. I got Leclerc. I would want Leclerc to win. I do feel like it is going to be Verstappen. I do feel like Red Bull's going to clean up the issues that they had this past weekend with Perez and Verstappen. Both, AWOL the last couple laps, losing the podium spots. But we will see. Anyway, let's get started.
So if you look back on some of the iconic images of Formula 1 history, you're probably going to come across some cars flying in the air or something, and these are all pretty much from the 1960s when things were just so damn awesome when it came to motor racing, even if a lot of people died. But hey, we're here to honour those drivers and what they achieved, so let's have a look at the 10 best
Jim
drivers.
Clark, he's got to be number one. He's got to be number one. I'm already saying that he's number one. He's number one. He's got to be number one.
Now, back in the 1950s video, I know I said I wouldn't rank these guys, but eventually I just thought,
my boy's face dark. What's that?
Number 10,
freaking smoke.
Bruce McLaren.
Bruce.
Founder of the British Formula 1 team that dons his name,
McLaren.
Bruce McLaren was a driver whose legacy still exists to this day. I mean, obviously. McLaren became the youngest Grand Prix winner in history after winning the 1959 United States Grand Prix, a record he would hold until 2003 when Eyebrow Man won the Hungarian Grand Prix. Once the 1960s came around...
Is Eyebrow Man Fernando Alonso? Is that like his nickname? Eyebrow Man?
Brown, though,
that's
McLaren
pretty cool.
started to hit his stride. Whilst he never had a proper crack at the title, 4 wins accompanied by 27 podiums suggest that this guy was no slouch. Number 9, Jochen Rindt. Even though Jochen Rindt was nationally confused, with the German running under an Austrian license, and when asked what he preferred to describe himself, he said, European. He nonetheless demonstrated his... That's
like saying, from all my guys out here, it's like saying, do you like titties or ass? I just like the woman. But, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to be specific. Like, I'm asking, do you like titties or the butt? Is that analogy? You know what I mean? Like,
ability behind the wheel, especially when the 1960s drew to a close. The 1966 season was where he demonstrated his skill driving for the Cooper Car Company, achieving an array of consistent performances as well as 3 podiums to take third in the championship. Once he found a competitive car with the Lotus team in 1969, he began to make his mark on the pace front. He would eventually take his maiden championship win the following year, but I mean, that ain't in the same decade, so we'll save that for later. But anyway, he helped popularise motorsport in Austria even before Niki Lauda hit the scene, and when you watch him drive, it's easy to see why. Number 8, Phil Hill.
Phil Hill
holds the distinction of being the only American-born Formula 1 world champion to date.
I actually thought he was related to Damon Hill, but Damon Hill is British and Phil Hill is American. So
and before you say, was it Mario Andretti?
He's Italian.
I remember where that guy was born. But yeah, Hill excelled at sports.
But he does, didn't you say Andretti does come off as an American though? I thought.
Very impressive to say the least. Buoyed by those results in sports cars, Hill started his Formula 1
Look at that bad boy.
Driving for Ferrari toward the
I would drive it now. No cap.
Podiums. He continued to amass some good results, including his first Grand Prix win at Monza in 1960, but 1961 would be his year. Although Wolfgang von Tripp's unfortunate demise ultimately gave Hill the title, both drivers were evenly matched throughout the season. Hill was certainly a worthy champion, but following that season, Hill really never regained the urge to race as hard as he did before, in Formula 1 at least. Number 7, Dan Gurney. Racing in the 1960s, the name Gurney was something that drivers feared for more reasons than one. It says a lot when the great Jim Clark describes you as the only competitor he truly feared. That was the case with Dan Gurney. Gurney's legacy in the sport extends beyond his driving skill.
That's major respect, though.
Wanting. Whilst his machinery sometimes saw him on the side of the road, his 4 Grand Prix victories showed the world he was a capable driver. He also was the person who began the ritual of spraying the champagne rather than actually drinking it, and the first driver to use a full-face helmet in Grand Prix racing. An inspiration to many American races,
he's American too?
Not just Formula 1, but motorsport, is why he'll always be nestled in amongst the greats of the sport.
That's
Number 6,
crazy. It seemed like there was a lot more Americans driving back then, even in the 60s, compared to now. Like, we don't have a single American driver. Like I said, man, hey, I will step up to bat. Hey, no cap. I will step up to bat. You know what I mean? Give me a couple years. You know, let me develop. You know, I'll step up. I'll step up. No cap. I already told you, man. Chaz Motorsports is on the way. Yeah, we here. We here.
Denny Hulme. It's one thing to be characterized as a bear, but Denny Hulme had the added bonus of actually looking like one. But the gruff nature of the one they called the bear did little to hinder his accomplishments. Having raced sporadically during the previous season, his first proper season in Formula 1 came in 1966, replacing Dan Gurney as Jack Brabham's slave. He finished on the podium in every race in which his Brabham could be bothered to finish. And then the following year, he would go on to win the World Championship after a string of consistent performances, beating out his boss to become the first and to date only World Champion from New Zealand. Number 5, John Surtees. I can go on about Surtees for a while, but instead I've enlisted the help of Mike from F1 Fanatic.
Thank you for having me on to talk about the great John Surtees. Now, John Surtees started his motorsport career back in the 1950s on motorcycles, when he would dominate the 500cc.
What the hell is that? I haven't seen these type of F1. Are these F1 like what mini cars? I'm like, that looks like some freaking bumper cars. Damn near like a freaking motorcycle back in the day. What? Hey, hey, it looked cool though. Look at that.
And become a 4-time world champion.
All right, what's that? MotoGP?
Make the switch across to Formula 1, and this is obviously where he puts him in the category.
I think Buddy actually answered. I was just talking over his ass.
One race, he would secure second place position at the British Grand Prix before in the next race going on to secure pole position at the Portuguese Grand Prix. But it is with Ferrari that John Surtees achieved his greatest success, which is becoming a Formula 1 world champion, and he did this in 1964. So with John Surtees, you know, he was an absolutely brilliant champion. Maybe should have been a multiple world champion in this category, but the biggest compliment you can give him is that he is the only person in motorsport history to be a world champion on 2 wheels and 4 wheels. Certainly a great of the decade.
That's what's up.
Now back to you, Josh. Who's up next?
Well, number 4, Jackie Stewart. Jackie Stewart is remembered in the world of Formula 1 for a couple of reasons. One of them is through his indomitable urge to make the sport safer, which you couldn't really blame him for, as drivers were being killed on a semi-regular basis back then. And the second reason for why people remember him was his incredible ability behind the wheel. And considering the context of this video, let's focus on that last bit, shall we? Stewart came into the sport in 1965 driving for the BRM team alongside Graham Hill, off the back of an impressive Formula 3 season. Stewart would take his first Grand Prix win that year at Monza, and by this stage was looking good to take the runner-up position in the standings over Hill, but he would eventually have to settle for 3rd overall, which wasn't great, but hey, still 3rd. After spending 2 seasons
it's not first though.
Sense of the BRM reliability, Stewart then switched to the Matra team and found himself in more comfortable territory. He would eventually win his first world championship in 1969, with more to come in the following decade, but you know, that's for another time. Number 3, Graham Hill. Graham Hill's wit, charm and mustache made him a popular character back in the 1960s. Something else really memorable was his raw speed. To date, he is the only winner of the prestigious Triple Crown of motorsport. Unless, of course, Lord Ego here gets his way. Winning his first world title in 1962, Hill then finished runner-up in the following 3 seasons. He was incredibly unlucky in the final race of 1964, however, when Lorenzo Bandini came over all Italian and rammed him from behind. And this probably lost him the world title to Surtees, but you know, that's sort of motorsport. It's not unusual for people to lose a championship in the last race, you know what I mean? But he would bounce back to win the 1968 season with Lotus. Of course, it wasn't without its issues. Lotus race cars back in the day had a reputation of falling apart if you so much as after a crash at the 1969 United States Grand Prix, Hill broke both of his legs and kind of halted his career, but when asked if he wanted to pass a message on to his wife, he replied, "Just tell her I won't be dancing for 2 weeks." Seriously, this guy was just awesome.
Yeah.
Number 2,
Jack Brabham.
As mentioned in the previous video, Jack Brabham was about as skilled with the spanner as he was with the steering wheel. In other words, he was really damn good. After winning the 1959 title, Brabham started off the 1960 season by retiring through gearbox failure. Okay, not a good start. But then at the Monaco Grand Prix, he would only complete 40% of the race before being disqualified. Again, not a good start, but once they got to the Dutch Grand Prix, that's when Brabham started to run away from the field, winning that race and the following 4 to take a comfortable championship victory over Bruce McLaren. Founding his own constructor in 1962, Brabham went on without a victory for 4 years, but then came 1966 when all the stars aligned from him, taking his 3rd World Championship by some margin over John Surtees and cemented his legacy in the sport. And now for some honourable mentions.
Pedro Rodriguez, Chris Amon, Lorenzo Bandini, Sterling Moss, Richie Ginther, Wolfgang von Trips. That's a hell of a name. I knew it. Rest in peace, Jim Clark. Rest in peace. I knew that.
Jim Clark was not only the greatest driver of the 1960s, but the greatest that ever lived. And it's not without reason. His championship victories is reason enough to think that he's great, and his winning percentage of 34.25%, which puts him ahead of Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, Jackie Stewart, and Ayrton Senna would make anyone believe this guy was a great driver. But some of his performances he put in were otherworldly. You want an example? I'll give you one. In the 1967 Italian Grand Prix, Clark had put his Lotus on the pole. He led the field away and it looked to be an easy victory for the Scot. That was until a puncture forced him into the pits. By this stage, he was a lap down, and on a track like Monza, yeah, good luck getting that lap back. Well, guess what he did? He tore through the pack, went under his pole position time, and retook the lead ahead of John Surtees and Jack Brabham. However, he ran out of fuel just before the line. He eventually finished 3rd in that race, but that performance was worthy not just of a race winner, not just of a championship winner, but of the best driver of the 1960s. So, who's your pick for the best 10 drivers of the 1960s? You guys know the drill. Comment below, keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a menace, and as always, I'll see you all later.
Hey, a lot of great drivers, man. We've seen a lot of great drivers. Jack Brabham, McLaren, the Americans, the Hills. Can't name them all, man. Absolutely some great drivers. Great drivers. You know, the guy who got confused with freaking... I gotta see Wolfgang Trips. That's a hell of a name. Wolfgang Trips. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, man. I very enjoyed it. They learned a bit more about these F1 drivers in the 60s. Definitely gotta look a bit more up. And I can't just, you know, just gain all my knowledge just from this one video. Definitely have to look it up. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video and sub as well. Comment down below your guys' thoughts and reactions. We'll see you guys later.